Hello and welcome to the Slow the Fuck Down podcast with Glow London and The Drum. I'm Emma Harris, Chief of Glow London and founder of the Slow the Fuck Down movement. In May 22, I had a completely out of the blue cardiac arrest and the odds of 96-4 surviving unscathed. Since then, I've been committed to sharing the perspective I'm now blessed with, that many of us are wasting the precious time we have on this planet with unsustainable pace and stress. In a world that's only getting faster, we're here to remind you that slowing down isn't just good for your health. It's about creating the right focus, making the right choices, and most importantly, achieving the life you want both in and out of work. In each episode, I'll welcome some fabulous guests onto the show to share their stories of how slowing down or not has affected their lives, their teams, and their businesses. Let's get started. Welcome to Glow London and the Drum Slow the Fuck Down podcast. On today's episode, we have Cheryl Calverley and Nicky Kemp. Cheryl is a former CEO and CMO, known for her passion, creativity, clarity of thinking, and down-to-earth approach, amongst many other things. Cheryl has rejuvenated brands from Marmite, Axe, Birdseye and the AA to Eve Sleep, and had a guiding hand in the strategies of Gusto, Booking.com and Sous Chef. Today, she spends much of her time and energy as co-founder of Moot, a first of its kind, brilliant membership club, giving teenagers an irresistible in real life, or IRL, but my kids always tell me not to say IRL, alternative to screens, widely recognised for her impact on the marketing industry. Cheryl is a fellow of both the Marketing Academy and the Marketing Society and has multiple IPA and Effie awards to her name. No Ned on here, I noticed. So if anyone's in the market for an amazing Ned, look up Cheryl. Today, we also have Nicky Kemp joining Cheryl. Nicky is a journalist, truth slayer and change maker who's been shaking up the creative industries for over 2 decades. From Bloomberg and The Guardian to Campaign and Creative Brief, she is reported on everything from finance to feminism, always with insight, heart, and a healthy dose of rebellion. If you don't follow Nicky on LinkedIn, do, because honestly, listening to her voice gives me inspiration every day. She has been named Journalist of the Year by Women in Marketing, one of the Dot's 200 Women Redefining Creativity. She doesn't just win awards, she redefines the way that we work. She's a fierce advocate for flexible working, co-founder of DICE, and a vocal force on the BBC spotlighting DE&I issues. She's also lead facilitator at Good Shout, brilliant organisation led by Amy Keane, which is helping women use their voices with power and purpose. So whether it's smashing stereotypes, rethinking the future of work, or calling time on influencer culture, Nicky brings the clarity and courage this industry needs. I'm very excited to welcome you both. Hello, Cheryl and Nicky. I always start our podcast by asking the same question. Which is, how do you think we've got here? And by here, I mean in this environment where everywhere we look, people are on a hamster wheel or, as I always say, drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of exhaustion. There's a lot of fear. How do you think we've got here? Cheryl, can I ask you first?
You can. How do I think we've got here? Look, everyone talks about pace of change. And I think we've got here by not acknowledging and leaning in to change. All my life I've ended up working with change and transformation, and the one thing you find universally is it always comes too late, and it always comes when people are on a burning platform. And right now we're on a burning platform, and that's sort of slightly human nature, right? We don't change until our feet are on fire. We hate change, or we're built not to like change. But I think not leaning into the changing nature of our industry, the changing nature of our demographies, the changing nature of women in work, the changing nature of the way we live and urbanization, the changing nature of literally the way that we communicate, and not leaning in and taking a forefront on it and instead waiting for the change to happen to us means we are sitting with our feet on fire, and that's why everyone's now drinking from a fire hose.
I love the analogies of the fire.
It's great.
I agree. There is the only constant thing is change. I think it was Deocritus, one of the Greek philosophers, and he said that in 600 BC. Yeah. So if it was true then, it's true now. Martha Lane Fox famously said today is the slowest day of the rest of your life.
And this is a little bit also of where I come, because I think how have we got here? my instinct answer was going to be, we've always been here.
100%.
Right? It's how human society works. But here is exacerbated much more than it was because it's global and it's 24/7, whereas it used to be constrained to a working day, and it wasn't absolutely everyone across the globe, all of it.
Yeah. Plus, we're talking about it. I think there was a time when maybe in the 80s where, you know, we were all like, just get on with it, and you didn't talk about it, whereas now we are talking about it, which is a good thing, right? Nikki, how do you think we've got here?
I think it's really interesting because we've had a huge period of change, but arguably we're still structuring the way we do things for a bygone era. So you have, whether it's brands having multiple sign-off processes for a single Instagram post, or whether it's companies having processes in place which essentially just add to their employees' workload. I think stress in the workplace isn't new. I think the brilliant thing is we do now have the language to talk about it and challenge it. But I think we need to consider that this idea that always on is never wrong is just fundamentally flawed.
As in, from individuals, that expectation.
Absolutely. And that's where mistakes happen. That's where conflict occurs. Because we talk about the AI disruption that we're seeing in marketing, but when you actually get under the skin of what is really stressing out CMOs today, a lot of it is around conflict. And that's conflict with individual people based on poor communication and poor boundaries. So actually learning how we communicate both as organizations and individuals in this always on culture, I think is fundamental to giving us freedom and also not letting people feel like they're passengers in their career, that they're constantly on someone else's treadmill, someone else's schedule. And that loss of control, I think, has a really catastrophic impact on the power of individual creativity, which is what we're all really passionate about.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so many things that I'm thinking. One is about the control piece, where marketing has very much sort of lost its leadership position in the boardroom. I work with an organisation, actually, our client is the sales leader, and he recently said, you know, in the boardroom, no one questions finance, no one questions HR. Everyone questions the CMO. She walks in with a plan, and because everyone with an Instagram on their phone thinks they're a marketeer, and that pressure and the fact that it's very performance led, so it's bits of it are very measurable. There's an addiction to the measurability, therefore the sort of art is lost. So absolutely agree with you, that's an issue. And the individual control piece, we talk so much about controlling the controllables. There's a lot going on. There's war, there's economics, there's politics, there's all the sort of macro stuff that you can't really change, yet takes up a lot of headspace and creates a lot of stress. And something we've been talking a lot about recently is what's within the sphere of what you can control, what is important. Just get into that bit in the middle.
Marketing is the only function in a business which is predictive. I always talk a lot to the people I coach on this because it's very difficult. Everyone else walks into the boardroom and their job is to understand what went before, explain it,
yes,
the impact it's had on the business, right? Whether it's procurement, well, what did that cost? How did that land? Whether it's HR, who did you hire? Did they resign?
Yeah.
Marketing is predictive. Marketing walks in and says, I am going to try and do something that changes the future. And the only role of the past is to change the future. But we have to sit in the room and hold hands and believe that I can help us change the future because I'm a growth, right? I'm literally here to not be what this business is today. That's why I'm a marketer. Everyone else is here to make what this business is today better, more efficient, better understood. And that's what's so very difficult because in a world which is changing more and more rapidly, that predictiveness is more and more impossible to do. So then people regress to what you can put your hands on, regress to what they know, which is then data. And we get to this very false accuracy, this false belief that because we can see and count something, it is in any way predictive or real. It isn't. But then the marketeer looks like they have sold snake oil. The marketeer looks like they failed because the data wasn't predictive. The data isn't predictive because you can't predict the future.
It's humans, yeah.
And that is
really
the crux.
Clear. I agree. And how are you guys doing amongst this chaos and the madness? Nikki, how are you doing?
So I think it's really important to recognise that we are in a really difficult time. I think lots of people are losing their jobs. Lots of people are facing really big global challenges. So my focus this year has really been to just focus on the micro actions that can make a small difference, but still a difference. So whether that's making sure that I make the time to do things like this, which will give me energy, and making sure that I'm actually doing the reading and the learning that actually make, I'm really passionate about being creative and curious, a reality. So I'm really focusing on those small steps that I can make. And I can't lie, I went to see Olivia Rodrigo on Friday, and I'm bringing the energy into this room of really overexcited 9-year-old girls. So I think actually just making the time to really make the effort to ensure that your energy is consistent, because we are all facing challenges within the industry, within our businesses. We can't control everything, but we can control the energy that we bring. So I'm really, really doubling down on bringing that consistency to my team. So if I turn up, you know what to expect, because it's going to be the same energy. So I'm doing as well as I could be in these kind of challenging times.
I love that energy management. It's so true. We have a finite amount of it, and it is a choice where we put it. And going back to that controlling the controllables, we waste a lot of energy stressing about things we can't control or that don't matter, and focusing your energy in a place where both you're controlling it and it makes a difference. That is a positive thing. I also always talk about how most people in your life, if your energy is finite, most people are poking holes in the bottom of that cup. Your kids are drilling holes in the bottom of that cup. Who actually puts holes back in, whether it's Olivia Rodriguez or the 9-year-old screaming, or your business partner or your other half, whatever it is, actively choosing people and moments that put energy back in like this. I'm glad you said this is one of them. It's so important, and that's all part of the choice. How are you doing, Cheryl?
Well, I think you couldn't be more on the nose with the energy. So I'm in the middle of building a startup, and we're live with a pilot venue. So we're beyond building into trying to grow all that sort of stuff, which is both very, very feeding of energy, but also quite draining of energy because it's pretty overwhelming. And it's also quite draining of energy because it can be quite lonely, despite the fact it's a startup which is in a really social space. It's actually quite lonely. You're used to walking into an office with 10 people or 20 people or 50 people, and now it's just myself and my partner and various people we work with. But you can get to the end of the week and go, I've not talked to many people this week. And I think really realising, so much more than what drains my energy, for me, it's really realising the things that I need to feed my energy. It's been a big thing literally over the past few months. And then being able to ask for them. And I'm not very good. I've never been very good at asking for what I want. I'm sort of first daughter, whatever you want to call it. I just make things happen, and I'm the strong one. So I've been trying to learn to ask for what I want and go, look, actually, I need to see people. I need to have time to spend with my animals. I need to spend time with my children. I need to eat a square meal. Like, these things actually are important, and I need to ask for them. So I'm definitely in a learning how to ask, and learning, not trying to learn, not to feel guilty for asking, and indeed taking those things. But that's quite a journey, I think.
At the risk of sliding into coach mode, 2 things. One, as Yoda says.
Hang on, do we have to do coach mode? No. Is it a ticket of voice just for coach mode?
Well, I just... or is it do or don't do? There is no try.
Yes.
And the other thing you said was, I can't remember. What was the sentence that you said?
Oh, trying not to feel guilty.
Guilt.
Yeah.
So guilt's something we talk about in Slow the Fuck Down as, like fear, FOMO, and FUPO, which is fear of other people's opinions. Guilt doesn't exist. So it's a choice. So recognizing, what are the things I talk about when I share my story of my cardiac arrest, is that the week before it happened, I'd flown home. I was in Chicago and was due to be in New York. With 36 hours in the middle, I flew home to see the kids because I was feeling guilty. And in my head, Danny was filming in Barcelona, and they were on their own and scratching at the door with no food. And because I created this ridiculous catastrophic version of what was going on, and got home, they were with grandma on their devices eating chocolate, didn't give a shit that I wasn't there. And guilt is that's what guilt is, the videos we play in our heads of how we're letting people down. And so just
and the videos we play, and also the bird, and which is a big thing for me, is not burdening people, and therefore the burden we're being by demanding of people. Then that's where the guilt sits. It's all nonsense,
and that's all FUPO, because that's assuming other people's opinions, assuming other people's thoughts and feelings, which don't exist. So yes, we're all mad, but being aware of it is a good thing. We're all human,
and thank goodness we do have this, because AI won't be worrying about this.
Well, this is what
we're made of.
Yeah, exactly, and this is what slow the fuck down is, though. So as I always say, slow the fuck down is not about doing less. It's about being really clear on why you're doing things and avoiding guilt and avoiding fear and avoiding FOMO and avoiding FUPO, fear of other people's opinions, and actually making decisions about what we actually really need in order to, and not doing the shit that we don't need to do. Anyway, back to you guys. So Cheryl, you've gone from FTSE C-suite to purpose-led founder. Thankfully, as you're doing a great thing for the world. What drove you to that shift, and was part of that decision about slowing the fuck down in your own life?
I don't think anyone would say founding a business is a slowing down, and so it's important to. My final business went into administration, so I had an absolute, talk about annus horribilis. I had a year unlike anyone would ever sign up for. I had various things in my home life as well, which was also a very difficult year. And then sort of, but I had always had an exit. I had an exit plan to go and build this business with my partner, with Paul, and the reason was because my race was run corporately, and I couldn't keep turning up and bringing the right energy because I didn't really believe in it anymore. I felt like I'd done the things that I needed to do, and I really needed now to go and build something that made the world a better place. And that was what was going to, back to your feeding energy, right? That was what was going to feed my energy. And I absolutely loved leading Eve. And if Eve hadn't gone into administration, I would have led it for probably another year or two. Didn't intend to leave quite when we did. But I definitely I'd fulfilled that feeling of walking in the door, leading a business, building a business I was really, really proud of. Most importantly, building a business people loved to work in and were together in and connected, which is absolutely all I wanted to be as a CEO, to build a business that set a bar for how businesses could feel like to work in. But I felt like I sort of was coming to having done that. And I didn't have a drive for build the most profitable business in the world, build the fastest growing business in the world, conquer 9 markets. And when you don't have that drive anymore to do that, you're the wrong person for investors to back, quite frankly. And I knew that I did have a drive to build a business that had a good impact on the world and was a great place to work. And I also really, I believe in capitalism. I know this is a very hard thing to say, but I believe in capitalism. I believe that the system of matching demand and supply with a token of value is the way that the best way to run the world and manage the world's resources. But I believe capitalism and profit can do good. I don't believe it has to be damaging. And so part of this business is to build a business which is a profitable business, but that profit does good. Now, this business will not grow at 25x. This is not going to be a unicorn. I don't believe those businesses can be good for the world, because I believe to be a unicorn, you are taking too dramatically from resources. But I believe you can build a big, strong, healthy, profitable business, and all that can be doing good, not harm. And that's what I really wanted to do, really.
And I suppose in that sense, that what slowed the fuck down is choosing what you want to do. And in that sense, even though no doubt what you and Paul have been through in the last couple of years has been epic and exhausting, you wake up knowing you're doing what you should be doing, and that's a beautiful thing.
Totally. And it's bloody good. It's and I can always I've only got one driver in life, which is to enjoy it.
Yeah. And
I walk in and it's bloody good fun. Now, it doesn't mean we've not had some lows, and it's a bit lonely, and I'm definitely past boundaries, but it's bloody good fun.
Brilliant. So Nicky, Mrs. Challenging of the status quo constantly, and your voice is brilliant and relentless, and the energy behind it, you can feel it when you read your words. How do you know when to stop yourself when you get sort of, you're piling your energy into that? How do you know when to sort of stop and slow back and go, actually, I'm taking myself to a place that doesn't feel healthy?
I think it's such a good question, and I loved listening as well. I think one of the things that I think is so important to recognise is, as women, we can have different chapters, different seasons to our careers and our lives. This idea that we have to consistently push ourselves, because actually, if you hadn't slowed the fuck down, arguably to some degree, you wouldn't have the headspace to know where you want to go because you're in the hamster wheel. And that's really interesting within journalism, because particularly if you're working for a wire service, which is where I started my career, Bloomberg and Reuters, your deadlines are so tight that your ability to put your head up and really think is really limited. But at the same time, when you take that structure away, that can be a bit frightening. Like, oh, I file my column that day, I write this many stories, I do this. And actually what's been really liberating with publishing is the business model has changed so much that it actually gives you the space to do different things. So I absolutely did have a point in my career where my children were young and I could not do the job I was doing and have the life that I wanted. So I made a change. And I think that's really important to recognize, because sometimes I speak to women and their energy is so low, their confidence and their self-belief is so low because they haven't made that change. And actually, there is a privilege in being in the position. So I went from working full-time to working 4 days a week. That was the big change that I made, because I just wanted to be a bit more present at home. And I think being honest about those compromises is really, really important. And that's what's given me the ability to go further, not just faster. And that's not to say that that's a linear thing, right? I'm fucking up left, right, and centre, okay? There is a domestic unravelling that's occurred at the bottom of my stairs. You know, I'm definitely not killing it at every single aspect of my life. But I do think that recognising that we all have decisions that we can make, and I recognise that there is privilege in those decisions because we all have bills to pay, we all have pressures, is really important. Because sometimes I think if you just keep running at the same problem without making any changes, that can be really tough. So yes, I'm really relentless in what I do, but I'm actually quite creative in how I do it, and I will make those changes. And I've made those changes again. I now work 5 days a week again, but I that fifth day, I'm doing different things. So actually your career it's not this linear ladder. And if you take a different step, you're not falling. If you fall off it or you're pushed off it, which is what happens to a lot of women, particularly after maternity leave, you're not failing. You can find a different way, but don't just sit still, because that's not going to solve your problems.
I completely agree. So much of the time I talk to people about choice and belief, which is a whole podcast in itself. I actually have only worked 4 days for the last 13 years. So and it's not something, it's really interesting how you framed that. That was a sacrifice you made. I make no apologies for working 4 days a week. I don't even think, well, I say to people I work full time, I don't think of that, because that Friday, I am squeezing a million things in.
Yeah.
Like, people say, I've got a day off tomorrow. And I'm like, I mean, by the time I've done the school run and done
Got a wash on.
I mean, done. I do
Done a
one.
shop.
I've one PT a week, so that's
Yeah.
my Friday. Taken the dog for a walk, done a bit of shopping, done some life admin. It's time to pick up. So there is. I mean, that Friday is so chocker. So for me, I've made that an absolute non-negotiable. Again, there is privilege in that, but I often think women who kind of apologize for that or see that as something they have to kind of ask permission for. I'd much rather have someone smashing it 3 days a week than cruising 5 days, because it's about output, no hours. And we'll talk about flexible hours in a minute, because I'm sure you've got lots to say. So Cheryl, also an executive coach. With that and your sort of background as a CEO, how do you help other high performers recognise when they need to pause? How do you sort of spot those moments when they've got to protect their energy or rethink what success looks like?
It's a relatively and as speaker someone who probably should be coached on it, it's a relatively easy coaching conversation for a high performer, because generally the people that I coach are understanding that they're in service of their business. They're like, I want to be better as in the role I'm in. I want to be a better leader for my team. They come to the table with, how can I be better in my role? And very quickly a conversation goes, well, what are you being paid for? And at a high performing level, at a senior level, you're being paid to think. You're being paid to support other people and create an environment where they can succeed. And that's really easy. So you can very quickly get to, well, how do you think? Do you think well when you're answering an email, or do you think when you're not answering an email? And the answer is clearly not answering an email. And I often say to people, what do you do to think? How do you feel? One of my favorite questions is, how do you feel when you stop and look out the window rather than answering an email?
Yeah.
And they'll say guilty, da 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 da. And I go, you are being paid to look out of the window, and you are being paid to turn up at every meeting with the best possible energy, as you said right at the beginning, Nikki, for your team, right? That is now what you're being paid for. You're not being paid to get through a to-do list. That's what your team, to an extent, are being paid for. And pretty quickly, it's a really, people do totally understand that, because then when you talk about the bosses that they've appreciated, no one says, well, I love the boss that really got through all the emails quickly and was great at the to-do list. They go, no, I love the boss that turned up. The boss that turned up with thoughtful conversation, that turned up and was there to support me, that turned up in the right frame of mind. That's the boss I love and remember and aspire to be. And so actually it just takes it's a reframing conversation. But then businesses, the other conversation I think is understanding that a business won't love you back. No business will love you back apart from your own business. Yeah. That's why I started my own business, another reason. And so you can just keep giving and it will keep taking. Yeah. It is the worst lover in the world, right? It's a totally unsympathetic lover. So reframing your relationship with the business is often a very big thing for people to start to draw some boundaries and go, actually, I'm being paid to be me in this business, not to do whatever the business will demand, because the business doesn't know what it demands.
Oh my God, I bet you are the most incredible coach. I bet you are absolutely changing lives. Nikki, thoughts on that? Or also I'd love to hear your thoughts on the flexible working.
I just love that. I think that's such a great point. And I have to add to that, having spent so long as a journalist, I'm going to make a big gender stereotype, but I find women invest so much of their time, energy, love into the businesses that they work for. Totally. That is brilliant. But men, they are doing the same, but into themselves, into their own personal brands. You know, I've worked with male editors that spent more time telling senior people what they were writing about than actually doing any writing. Like the internal PR, the sort of, I know it's a horrible phrase, but the personal branding, and that truth that the business will not love you back is you can hold the two things at the same time. I always have obsessively loved my team. When I leave companies, I take my team. I don't poach them all. I know that's illegal, but I will always be on their team. That's sort of a non-negotiable for me. But I also think it's really important to think about what it is you bring to a business, but also what a business is bringing to you and what is consistent. So there's a guy called Clayton M. Christensen who writes marketing books, academic, and he has this quote that sounds so simple, but it's really hard to do. Decide what it is you stand for and stand for it all of the time. And I think from a leadership perspective, that being really about you and rooting your own identity, not in a job title, which we know in this climate can come and go, but in your expertise, what you bring to a team and your energy. And I find that men are disproportionately investing that time to women. So that is one of my sort of personal crusades, to kind of persuade women to take the time to have like coaching, to have that headspace to really go, what am I working on this year that is not a to-do list? What am I achieving? What am I growing for myself? Because actually that's going to benefit your business. This isn't about me ahead of we. This is about having that real clarity of energy of what you bring, what your skills are, and how you're constantly developing them in such a chaotic time. And on the flexible working point, I think this is such an important conversation to have because it's just not being had. We've seen really, really big companies like WPP do return to office 4 days a week. And it's really, really important to recognize that if we don't have a conversation as an industry, we are allowing those with the most power to really, really impact those with the least. And fear of offending those big companies by saying that actually 120,000 women have left the creative industries in the last 2 years, according to major players' data. We are in the midst of a huge, huge rollback in gender equality. COVID was a once in a generation opportunity to reshape the workplace. And we are letting the opinions, not fact, the feelings, the opinions of men walking empty floors in very, very big office footprints, offices that could be used for different things, really, really control a debate, which is so much more than that. It's about opening up the industry to different types of people. It's about creating an industry where people can actually create their best work. And it's about making progress from presenteeism. And the danger is if we just say nothing, then it will be those with the least power that will be disproportionately impacted. You know, I still speak to women that are coming back from maternity leave and struggling to get agencies to let them leave 30 minutes earlier to do a nursery pickup. Like that for me is batshit. Like that is just unacceptable. So I'm really, really passionate that we have that conversation and we have it all year round. So when gender pay gaps are published, please, can industry journalists do their homework? They are not a freak weather incident. They are the result of policies or lack thereof that are impacting women's ability to earn more money. So I think even though I'm very grateful to work 4 days a week, I think that's wonderful. That's not enough. Like we have to be much, much more ambitious in how we create a really brilliant workplace, which means that we have to be more mindful of what we're saying and the stereotypes that we're perpetuating by just kind of having this idea that you have to be in an office 4 days a week in order to be achieving something. And that's not about my personal preference, which actually I really enjoy being in an office. I don't have to I'm not doing a nursery run. I'm not in that position in my own career, but I'm not so arrogant to think that my personal preference should be the working style for the entire industry. That for me is just really catastrophically uncreative.
It makes me very angry. And I mean, whenever I'm working with young women who either about to go off on maternity leave and have got the fear, or coming back from maternity leave and got the fear, I always remind them of the same thing. And I will say this to all industry leaders: all of us came out of somebody's vagina. You know, it's like that having children is the greatest job in the world, because without it, the human race wouldn't exist. So creating allowances for that, you know, I bet that CEO that's not allowed that woman to leave half an hour early, I bet his mum, I bet he's glad his mum was allowed to pick him up from school. What advice have you got for women who might listen to this? Because the idea is that we are, of course, raising issues, but also helping individuals. If there's women that are listening who are thinking, I'm in this position where I'm really struggling with this lack of flexibility, what advice have you got for them?
Top of the list is collaboration. I think it's really important to get the collaboration from the industry. I think Bloom is a brilliant, brilliant organisation that really supports women. And they did a piece of research recently called The Juggle, which showed that 93% of women in the advertising marketing industry are struggling with work-life balance. So it's really easy to feel isolated, to feel that you're falling short because you can't make it work. But actually, when we look at the statistics, we know that we're still creating structures which suffocate women. So I think there's a pride to be had in trying to thrive in a system that's designed to suffocate you. The second thing is to take the details out of it. Like I find, and this is not said in a judgmental way, but so often I find, and I've done it myself, we over-explain as women. So there is a really, really big explanation, and actually just focus on the impact on your business. It's not going to have a big impact on your business. It doesn't, in many ways, it doesn't matter why you need to leave 30 minutes earlier.
100%.
And I see women just tying themselves in knots in the over-explanation. And then I also think it's really important as line managers, whether you're child-free or whether you have team members that are child-free, but actually they're professional rugby players, or they have other things to do, to recognise that if you're going to get the best out of the individuals on your team, you are going to have to be more flexible. That's just it's a really singular truth. And just to have that empathy is really, really important. But my biggest piece of advice is just to say what you want without explaining why it is you need it. Just focus on the business impact.
I do this in my personal life. Sorry, Cheryl. I do this in my personal life because I used to always do that. I can't make it because no one gives a shit. And now I'm just like, and amazing. No one questions it. So sorry, I can't make it.
Well, also, what's it to you? It's nothing to do. Nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. And with the
this is something that I'm asking
over-explaining.
for, and I need it. So
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say I'd build on, whether it's particularly the collaboration point. Actually, what's really useful for I would take not just the detail out, but the emotion out.
Yeah.
So I think what is really useful for a leader is if someone goes, here's my boundaries, here's what I need. I need an early finish on a Monday. I need to be at home for Thursday morning, so meetings are online. I understand what that means for the business. I understand that means the Thursday morning meeting, I'm asking everyone to be online, right? So the impact is on other people. So recognise the impact on other people. So here's my proposal to handle that. The problem that leaders have in business is when people come and go, here's my demands, here's what I need. And you go, look, but everyone needs different things, and we can't meet everyone's needs, and B, we can't have everyone not recognise everyone. There has to be compromise within the team. So here's my proposal for the compromise. That is a really helpful conversation, because then you go, oh, great, okay, so that proposal's great. I'll need to talk to so-and-so about that one because that might conflict with them. This one, don't think we can do, but how about this? And so now we're in a conversation, a grown-up, adult-to-adult conversation about a relationship with boundaries.
I love that. And I would also add, make no apologies.
No, just...
I remember coaching or mentoring one of the Marketing Academy scholars who was about to go and tell her boss she was pregnant, very emotional, very scared. And I said to her, you go in with, I'm really sorry and I'm going to have to take time off. His response will be very different to, great news, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
No idea how long I'll be off, but I'll make sure I bring the team in behind me, and it'll be great.
But also have another big piece of advice: hold other people as competent, creative, and whole.
Yes.
Hold your boss in the respect that he will also think this is wonderful.
Yes,
right. Have some respect for him as a human being.
As
right. 99% of human beings would say that's great.
Yes, absolutely. So you and your responses, and your response will encourage other responses. Cheryl, Moot is all about getting teenagers off screens. Oh my goodness, what thank God for you as the mother of several children. Was this in some way a reflection of your own desire to create that sort of space for yourself? Was it about your kids? Tell us the inspiration behind that.
It was very much so. If I really go down to what goes on in my heart when I look at the chaos we're in, I have a deep, so I'm a psychologist by trade, right? I have a deep and visceral fear of how society is running, right? What we are doing to society, you wouldn't do to animals in a zoo. You wouldn't say to animals in a zoo, the only way you can see your fellow animal is through a moving picture of your fellow animal. You're going to spend most of your time sitting over here on your own and not interacting and not socialising. And when we did do it to animals in the zoo in the 70s, we had animals go nuts. We had jaguars walking, getting self-harming and all sorts of stuff. Well, we can see that right now, right? So I think the A&E accident rate has dropped by 70% for children under 12, at the same time as self-harm, suicide, depression, anxiety has more than doubled, right? So we're literally doing we're doing to society, but particularly to young people, what we used to do to animals in a zoo, and we stopped doing that, right? So it came from a very visceral, not so much my own self, although I definitely feel it because I'm quite a social beast, and I definitely feel it, but just walking around society and feeling the bifurcation, feeling the mental health and the distress, and knowing that we have done that. We are the generation. We invented Facebook. We invented hybrid working. We did this, right? We have, for this generation, invented cigarettes. This is our problem. And so to sit there and go, well, snowflake generation, that we have to fix it. We broke it. And so that was a real, like a sense of responsibility. This is my sustainability. This is my contribution to the earth, right? This is my equivalent. It's societal sustainability. And that's sort of where it came from. And, kids were growing up and could see it really, really close to home with friends and stuff.
And so you've got one site at the moment?
We have a pilot site up in Northwest London in Queen's Park.
Lovely. Check it out if you've got young kids.
Yeah, definitely. Teenagers, 12 to 17.
Brilliant. And it's going well?
It's going well. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy like all these things are, but it's going well. We're elbows deep at the moment in planning our Schools Out Summer Festival. So we're trying to secure talent for Friday night and Saturday, which is, yeah.
We'll have a conversation after this. I know some talent. Brilliant. Very excited for you. Please support Moot. And Nicky, as someone who amplifies other people's voices, how do you make sure you give yourself space to hear your own?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's so interesting because as a journalist, and I've spent so many years as a journalist, I'm actually really, really good at listening. That's my best skill. So I can listen and find the stories behind the headline. But sometimes actually that point of self-reflection is really, really important. And for me, it's really being about the people that I surround myself with. So sometimes I do self-edit. I think women are socialized to self-edit. And I think having people around me, like Amy Keane, like you, that actually give me space in the way that I give other people space is really, really helpful to me to really recognize what it is I want to say that I'm perhaps holding back. Because as a journalist, your job is to make other people comfortable, to make them feel comfortable, enable them to share. And you can really see that in the difference between how a CEO interviews a CEO versus how a journalist interviews a CEO. It's a very different skill set. It's all about creating that space where people will open up. But creating that space for yourself, that can take a bit more time, if I'm honest. And I like to see it as a work in progress. So when I think about slowing the fuck down, probably last year, I was holding myself to really set standards. Like I must go to the gym 2 times a week, which I'm failing fantastically at that. So this year, what I've done is I've tried to kind of play to my strengths. And so I've made it more of a question. Because as journalists, we sometimes go to questions more than answers, which actually in a time of change is quite a useful technique. So I've just been asking everyone, how are you going further and not faster? So I'm constantly looking at it and changing things and recognizing that it's fine to fail, to set yourself that goal and perhaps not always reach it. Only if you're constantly asking that question, and you're constantly asking your team that question as well. So it's a we, not me approach.
She's brilliant.
I know.
I knew that, but you really are.
I mean, I know everything she's saying. I'm literally like, right, I'm stealing that. And I do think as mums, we're always slightly failing at something. I think you're never at home enough. You're always missing something. You feel like you've not been able to sort of be as there's that sense of failing. I love Mandela's "there's no such thing as," is it? Oh no, there's no such thing as a mistake, just learning. And as long as that is a loop of learning. So this morning, I'll give you an example. This morning was my work. I've got certain days that are workout days, embarrassingly linked to when I have a blow dry. But those 3 workout days,
I said blow dry.
3 workout days. And to this morning, I was hot. I was menstruating, and I lay in bed and thought, and my body was just saying, do not do this, and the voice of do not do this was really, really loud. So I'm lying in bed having this conflict of, but it's your workout day and you'll fail and your week will be fucked because you and I just found the voice that was my nurturing voice and said, it is 32 degrees, you have not slept brilliantly, and you've got cramps and you're tired. It's okay. And I think it's that balance. It's like, who are you failing to? You're only failing to yourself. And why would you not embrace yourself and say, okay, let's make another choice. It's not the end of the world, because that's the judgment of yourself is the worst voice.
I think also I couldn't. Yes. And I also think as a parent, I am very, very aware of what I'm teaching my children, because I am a brutal parent.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, you're playing cricket. You said you're playing cricket. We're off to play cricket.
Yeah.
And I remember there's a time my son came home and he cycles to school. It's a 1.5 mile cycle to school. He got halfway to school. His pedal fell off his bike. He had to walk his bike back home. He comes in tears because he thinks he's going to be late for school, and that's very dramatic if you're in I think he was year 7 at the time. And I had a meeting, and he said, Mum, will you drive me to school? And I went, no, I won't. I'm sorry, I've got a meeting. You can take another bike. And my son stood there in tears, and and all I'm thinking about is I've got a meeting, and I'm like, I furnish him with another bike and send him off to school, and then I try and tell myself, well, it's quicker to cycle than drive, and I've got this. And he came, and by the time when he came home, I was like, I am so sorry, I made completely the wrong call, darling. I absolutely should have taken, A, please forgive me. B, I'm so sorry. Because it's very easy when you're not forgiving yourself to also teach your children that same behaviour, and then you go, I don't want another one but growing up and burning out.
Yeah.
Now, of course, he's then used that as a whip to beat me with every time onwards, so you've got to be careful, but yeah.
I mean, it's just always a balance, isn't it? I remember once sending Blue, who's my eldest, to school with norovirus, because I am that, unless you're dead, you're going
same,
to
same,
school.
I've done the same.
And the school phoned me and said, he's been sick, and I said, did you see him be sick? And then they were like, he's green. Like literally he's green, and I was like, oh, fuck, okay, I'll pick him up. And he really was literally like, okay. So I feel you, it's that thing, and he's used that as a stick to beat me for many years.
They have such long memories for our fuck-ups, though.
Oh, I have my mother's. Let's be very clear.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and also they're most brilliant at showing them, holding a mirror up to you. So something Marley said to me recently, I was like, we're going to be late. And come on. I mean, I hate being late, and it's a real thing for me, and my husband's always late.
Yes,
and so I was like, okay, come on, we're going to be late. And if we're late, then I'll have to take you into the office, and then I'll be late. And I've done this whole thing, and he just went, great manifesting, Mom. Because I talk about manifestation. I was like, talk about hoisted by your own petard. It's like,
absolutely.
Oh, they just see you, don't they? They absolutely
totally
see you. I have a feeling that we're close to run out of time. So I need to ask you my sort of last final question. Lots of people listening have learned so much from both of you. What's the one thing that we want people that are listening to really take away in terms of their own ability to slow the fuck down to improve their lives?
Let me go. So this is really hard to get your head around when you're in the middle of a chapter. But you're only in the middle of a chapter, and there will be another chapter. And it'll be another chapter. This chapter that you're in, it will come to an end. It is not, you aren't on a treadmill forever. You're not. There will be another chapter, and then there'll be another chapter, and then there'll be another chapter, and they're all different, and they all have different needs and wants, and they're all wonderful in their own way. You can't fail at the book, and you can't really fail at any one chapter. There's just another chapter. It's really important. We're in a story.
Yeah. And something I say a lot, which my kids do get annoyed by when things are going wrong, is everything is perfect. Because everything is as it should be. So even though this wouldn't maybe be the design, everything is, and it will show itself to be so, but everything is perfect.
I love that. That's such good advice about chapters. Mine would be, don't be a passenger. I think it's really tempting, especially at this moment in time we find ourselves in. And I see it a lot with senior people. The talk of, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And they're almost wasting so much time talking about how busy they are and bringing that sort of frenetic energy that just stresses out teams, and it creates such a culture of busy off, where it's I'm too busy for that, I'm too busy for that. So I just think really, really recognise if that is you, really think about stop doing it, because it's such a negative energy to bring into a room, and it's such a negative energy to bring to your team. And not being a passenger, the number one thing to do, and I think it really draws on slow the fact down, is really think about what it is you can control. And those can be really tiny micro things, whether it's taking that back to school energy, not just to your kids, but to your teams, like really simple, small things that you can do that can just make people feel seen, and to really, really recognise that nobody cares as much about your career as you. And if you don't take responsibility for your own career trajectory, for your own learning, for the culture of creativity and curiosity that you want to deliver to your team, no one else is going to do it.
I love that. We're doing a lot of sessions at the moment, which we're calling Control the Controllables, which is that sort of what you can control, what matters piece, and giving people accountability for their own lives. Because I think there is a bit of an energy at the moment. It's like, oh, I'm not getting the career I want. Oh, things are really hard. That sort of living in effect rather than in cause, which is, how did I create this? What am I learning? And what am I going to do about it? One of my favourite quotes, Maya Angelou, if you don't like it, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. I think it needs to be a little bit of that. Brilliant. I love that. And I just to reflect on what you were saying about your own slow the fuck down, you might remember that Richard from the Drum said, slowing the fuck down is not about doing less. It's about not doing the shit that you don't need to do in order to do the stuff you do want to do and show up as the best version of yourself. And I think that's what you're saying is like, choose not to be this busy fool. That was absolutely brilliant. Oh my God, I've learned so many things. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Honestly, I'm stealing so many of those sayings. And thank you all for listening. This has been Slow the Fuck Down. Thank you for listening to the Slow the Fuck Down podcast with Glow London and The Drum. If you found this episode interesting and insightful, please help us spread the word by giving us a follow or sharing it with your friends. And if you feel inclined to give us a quick review, that would be awesome. Let's all do what we can to help the world slow the fuck down.